Well, it's time to start doing something that John O'Hara has asked me to do, which is partly to make a memoir about my writings. Memoir, he calls it, about me, about who I am, and about what I want to get out of this, about going online with all of my copious writings, and partly about what they're about, but also what can we hope to achieve here by going. Is it a Patreon project? Is it a GoFundMe? What will I do with the money? What do I want to do? What have I done? What's it worth? What's it worth to you? I don't know. But I have some bills to pay. I have an old criminal fine I'd like to get taken care of so that I can travel to the United States again. I want to go to Delphi again. I want to go to Ireland, which I never have. I want to go to India, which I never have. I want to go to Iceland, which I never have. Also get citizenship there, which I can. And see a lot more than just sitting in suburban Canada for the rest of my life waiting to die. No, I know I'm going to live another 30 years. How? I have no idea. By what means of paycheck? I have no idea, other than I know I'm a talented writer and that writing is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. My voice is a little not full sounding right now. I don't know what's with my voice lately. I'll just take a drink of water here. It can be big and sonorous. Uh, I won't go into my medical condition right now, but I've been kept from being big and healthy like I like to be for various reasons in the last while. And I hope to put that to rest in the spring or over the course of the next few months. But where do I start here now? John has asked for a memoir. Well, when did I start writing? Who am I? Where did that come from? I don't know. I was literate when I was very young. Literate, like, I don't remember how long it took me to go from reading Dick and Jane books to and Mrs. Mannel, the lady, would have these sort of English schoolboy books that she had for me, and my aunts and uncles bought me things like the Life Science Library and the World Library, the World Book Encyclopedia, and National Geographic's mom and dad got for me, and all that, and I read in school. I was safer in the library than I was in the gym. I hung at the band in the library because I didn't get along with the kids in the shop end of the school, being in the industrial end of the school. I never learned a trade. I missed out on the family trade of electrician when BC Hydro. I had an in on the electricians union, and they transferred the intake to Newton, which didn't have public transit in those days. So I wound up having to work in the kitchens at UBC that summer. So that's UBC. When I got into it at 16, my father died when I was 16 in that year, and I wound up working I'm sorry, I won't get into that which year that was, but the next summer I had a job at uh, the second summer of university. I got a job at CBC in the radio technical operator, and with the CBC operator hosts, got to know them and got invited by one at McGill in Montreal to go work for CBC there, but I asked in English and wound up having not get that job, and I wound up not working there that summer. Can't remember what I did. Oh yeah, I was um, uh, assistant theater director, backstage operations for Maurice Pollock Hall at McGill. So I had 2 years of UBC in composition and electronic music, and world music. I took creative writing there. That's, I guess, when I started writing. I had no idea what I was writing. They're all just, student essays, ASSAY, just trying things out, ideas out. Um, and took Scandinavian literature as electives, as creative writing and Scandinavian literature as electives. I took linguistics. Didn't know what I was saying. Didn't know what I was doing. And there was a lot of politics around the music department, both at the student level and the professorial level an alcoholic department head. I wound up pulling out of UBC music And I wanted to be a composer like my grandfather and conductor like my grandfather. Had no musical knowledge at all, but I chose that over going to chemistry, and went into that at UBC and wound up pulling out and going off to McGill after a conversation with Barry Truax, the composer, to study with Bruce Mather. I did things by the seat of my pants. And also my family's partly from Montreal. Dad was born in Winnipeg, but I had two uncles there. And McGill, a very famous university. And I just wanted away from UBC. I was having a real bad time in school, in residence, and in school too, really. Um, yeah, I was drinking a lot thanks to Dad dying young. Was that the only reason why? No, alcohol is a powerful force. Alcohol is a powerful force for any Dionysian. And I was still sorting out who I was. And of course, I'm big and tall and strong, 6'7" at that point, and could get in any bar in Vancouver with no questions asked. I know I got into. I had the full complement of symphony tickets. Mom was doing everything she could to keep me happy after Dad died, I guess. So I had full season symphony tickets, and I'd go to the what was it, the Alcazar Hotel on Dunsmuir, and I'd be able to sit in any lounge in Vancouver, drove in a hotel, and have a cocktail. I was never questioned. I was 17. I was 18. So anyway, Montreal was a wonderful experience, I guess. Conducting class, I couldn't handle. I did not have the confidence to even look the conductor prof in the eye. I had to withdraw from that course. Composition, I had no knowledge of anything really. Mather didn't care about any of this, and I wound up just hanging out in the electronic music studio and never did record anything in there. Did a lot of improvisational music with some friends. I wish we'd recorded that stuff. And learned a lot from everybody I played with, little ensembles. And the great Jan Simons was my voice teacher. Turns out I was a Helden tenor. I thought I was a choral bass, which is what my dad was, I think. And my grandfather was founded the Sons of Norway Choir, also the Sons of Norway Chorus, so that's who he is, the Sons of Norway Choir, with my Uncle Odne, A-D-N-E, and a very distinguished man, my grandfather, more than I've realized until lately. Now, why is my voice sounding so rugged tonight? Why do I sound so old? Well, I am. I turn 64 in the next month and a half. But like I say, John O'Hara in Chicago, my friend John, wants me to says it's more authentic for me to tell my story than to try and write it out, and it is indeed very hard to write out. So I'm trying to give it the thing of who I was when I was writing, when I started to write. I was beginning to write during those times. I started to write in my trip. I had a little book with me. I traveled through Europe, and I started writing during that, like a traveler's diary. Notes about people I met. Some of that is in the writings that John has and is transcribing or making available on visual means. Some of them you'll know what they are, some of them are obvious what they are. But I eventually had to come back to Canada in the spring of my year. I pulled out of McGill for fourth year. I'd met a woman who taught medieval song at Basel, and just floored me how beautiful it was. I wanted to learn to do it, and she said, well, just come. So that's what I did. I took the Wanderjahr off and went to Europe, and she shows up, and the great Andrea von Ram, R-A-M-M, and she said, you came. And yeah, and I sat in on one of her snotty little seminars, and she saw I'm not who you want to be in these snotty little seminars. And we had lunch, and she really liked me, and she said, you know what, you don't want to be a music student, just go live. But after all my wanderings around Europe, not knowing who I was, not having any money, just staying a night in one city and one day in Vienna, and I passed up an opportunity to meet to have the ambassador to take me to lunch. It was funny because it was the same day that the Arabs had taken hostages at the Canadian embassy. Was in the same building as OPEC. And if he'd found out I'd come to Vienna to want to learn I didn't want to study music in Europe. I wanted to study. Same at Cambridge. I didn't want to go into music. But he would have helped me out. You know, I was often turned down help that I should have known to try and follow up on. I follow through to that pattern to this very day. It's something built into me, or so I tell myself. So, anyways, I got back to, after choosing wisely not to go to Scotland for a job, just signing papers for a good paycheck. I wanted to learn about family and traditions in Norway and history. And I went back to the home island, Karmøy. And well, they don't like Norway. They don't like foreigners in Norway. Doesn't matter if you're Norwegian or not. And I was from away, and I wound up getting a bus ride on a copper freighter, basically, over to Hull yeah, on the Humber, and had to wait a week for immigration to let me in. And I wound up from there taking the Green Line bus across to London, and in a youth hostel there. I wound up working for the guys who own the hostel, doing demolition as they're doing renovations in Ladbroke Grove in the Notting Hill Gate area. And put a pinch bar in the back of my head. And allowed myself to be persuaded into going back to Canada by a young New Zealander that I was friends with. And really, if I'd stayed in London, it was 1976. I saw the 101ers, who was like the pre-band for the Clash, at the Roundhouse opening for Van de Graaff Generator and the Spiders from Mars. There's theater in London, there's music, there's life, there's living in London that Vancouver could never hope to match. My Kiwi shepherd friend had no idea what he was asking me to do. It was basically go back to Canada and line him up with work so he could come to Canada. He was missing his mom. He didn't understand that it was better for me not to miss my mom, but to stay in London, where I was beginning to become my own man. But you can't look back. But I look back all the time. I look back all the time. I look back all the time. 20 years ago, and a year, maybe a couple of months, and I bid on a criminal fine. Like I said, I got to pay. I could have said 500, had it paid long ago. Instead, I said 5,000. So if you're interested in helping me out, and 5,000 people hear this, and each one of you send me $1, that'll help out a lot. Okay, folks, then I'm done. I can come to Chicago. I can come to New York. I can come to LA, which I want to do. Because I am American. I know I said I was born in Canada, or did I say that? I was born in Canada. But both my mom and dad had American citizenships, and my grandfather immigrated to the U.S. first, was in the U.S. Army Musical Corps and Medical Corps, and loved the U.S., as I know my dad did, and my Aunt Lillian in Chicago. And I miss LA. I miss LA. I've never been to Florida. I've never been to Mardi Gras. I love New York. So yeah, if you want to help this old poet out, I'm a lot more than just an old poet. I'm a historian. I'm a historian of this whole part of the world, the Northwest, quite a bit of amazing detail, which amazes professorial acquaintances, and some journalists know that I know a lot of detail. Unfortunately, I don't keep it under control in the way that they like to. Oh, don't say anything in a way that doesn't offend anything, Mike. Oh, come on. You know, how can you say some things that don't not offend people? But people only hear things the way they want to hear them told. And unfortunately, I don't do that too well. Trying to stay on keel here, folks. About when I started writing. Oh yeah, so that was that whole trip, the trip to Europe thing. The one I started writing was during all that. I came back and crashed and burned once I was back in Canada. And got a job that fall bartending. It was a government training thing that screwed up in the last week, which these guys always do to you. So we didn't get our training certificate. I didn't keep the bartending job. And I wound up with mono, very serious mono, down to emaciated. I could put my fist between my knees, and I'm like a 6'7" at the time. I've gotten shorter over the years. It's about 6'3.5" now. Down to 170, 180 pounds, and I couldn't swallow it all. I was in St. Paul's Hospital in Vancouver on intravenous for a month. And so I took the whole summer off and went to California and recuperated from mono, very severe mono. And it was during a conversation, this is the summer of 77, conversation at late night with a newly met friend on good high energy tea. What was that stuff called? I don't remember the name of the tea. It was Buffalo Thunder was the name of the tea, and it was a speedy tea and pot all night with a guy who was studying physics cosmology at University of California, Santa Barbara at Goleta. And I said, oh, wow, I didn't know we could talk about all this stuff in university. Because remember, I'd been taking composition and musicology and English and Scandinavian literature and artsy-fartsy courses. And even in physics, I hadn't seen anything but, the dull humdrum side of physics, not like cosmic strings. I understand all that stuff, you see. I'm not just a poet. I understand physics. I understand geology. I understand nucleochemistry before it even came along. I understood a lot of things about that if just people come along in science as they come along. I understood it implicitly because I've read so goddamn much as a kid. Literally. And just all gelled inside of me. So I'm a poet who knows his physics. I'm a poet who knows his metaphysics. I'm a poet who knows his music. I'm a musician who knows his poetry. Poetry, how many musicians out there have read through, 3/4 of the Norton Anthology of Poetry, most of the metaphysics? A lot of people on the German side of the music education field have no doubt read through German poets, but how many people in the Western schools have read through the German poets? I don't know. I haven't read through enough, I can tell you that. I wish I had time. I haven't studied the classics like I wish I had. I wish I had time to study Greek, because in fact, remember I mentioned I want to go to Delphi? That's because I want to produce at Delphi some of the lost plays. I want to find those lost plays and translate those lost plays. This is why I want to live for another 30 years. You see, I need your help. I need your help. If you believe in me, then we haven't figured this out, John and I. Is it going to be a GoFundMe? Is it going to be a Patreon situation? The GoFundMe thing at $1 a head, over 20,000 people, that's $20,000, folks. I don't want to be on disability. I'm on disability in Canada. Why? For depression. Why am I depressed? Well, you know that line about maybe you're not depressed, maybe you're just surrounded by assholes? Well, it's not quite like that. It is, but it's also that I'm depressed because I can't get work because nobody wants to hire somebody who knows as much as I do. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, I don't want to hear that guy. He talks too much. He's too friendly. I don't like him. He's too friendly. He's weird. I think he's a faggot. Yeah, well, I am, but, it's not exactly like that, but it might as well be. It is exactly like that. But that is depending on who you talk to. And other people say, well, that doesn't matter. You should be fine as to who you are. Oh, well, it's nice to say that's fine to be. It's a nice ideal. But that's not the way this world works. So I was raised in redneck towns, stump towns, like I hear that's Portland's nickname, apparently. I was raised in the redneck towns. Remember I said I could have had to avoid the redneck end of the school, the industrial wing? And I wouldn't have fit in as an electrician. Would have made a lot of money. I look around me, I look at all my tradesmen friends, whether they're carpenters or big millwrights and electricians, and I got a couple of big stonemason friends, some pipe sprinkler fitter friends. I admire them. They got money, they got big trucks, they got kids, they got houses. What do I have? Well, I can rhyme. What have I got? Well, I ain't got the time, bro. People will sometimes be real friendly, but they have no time to spend with me, especially if they're married, and my wife doesn't like it if a husband has a single male friend, especially an older one. And I don't know, what do I want? Freedom, life. I'm rubbing my leg while I talk, trying to think about getting myself back on keel. So back to the memoir. Back to the memoir, John. This is hard to do, John. Back to the memoir. I'd mentioned the getting mono. I'm coming back to Canada, and then I came back to Simon Fraser University, and there was a course I audited called Myths, Fictions, and Histories: The Meaning of Experience, hosted by a Franciscan monk named Kieran Egan, who's still out there. Still, it's the same sort of course material, and that's indeed what a lot of my writing is about, taking off from the stuff that I began to be exposed to off that course material, which included, I don't know, Karl Popper. I later on got exposed to writings by Morris Peckham, and I don't know. I'm a big fan of Norman O. Brown. Closing Time. What a great book The Closing Time is. And Closing Time exposed me to James Joyce. Finnegan's Wake, Past River Run. Yeah, I could start doing the first lines of that. I don't know some of them by heart. I'm a big fan of William Butler Yeats. Fan? No, I incarnate him at points. And T.S. Eliot, Allen Ginsberg. I deliberately try to emulate certain writers. Other things just came out of me, like I said, Yeats. It just came out of me in full Yeatsian form. I came out with several series of quatrains. But where it all really began to gel down was there was a certain point in 1979. I'd been writing through 77, 78, 79, and somebody had met SFU during those years up there. I'd been taking some classics, was it? I'm trying to remember now. 79 maybe. Somebody said, I was saying I had a writer's block. He says, just start writing. Just start writing anything, right? And I did. I had a line for Dick Sullivan, who was my classics prof, humanities prof. The bards of Babylon, great gallery Nineveh's lore. And Dick said, that's a great line. Take more on that. And I did. 10,000 years of human stare lit many lights extinguished more. And he just smiled at me, and that just turned into, and that's called the Foam. That's in my writings, that one. The flames that burned on Oryx Heights extinguished the fire that, so on. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to get distracted. And so that was in the turning of the year, 1979-80. And by this point, I'd become involved in the Medieval Club, the Society for Creative Anachronism. And we were coming back from California in 1980, and it was the equinox. And we were in Portland on the Bernier Three Mountains on our host's porch, and Mount St. Helens was looming, like bulging. And I said, she looks pregnant, better feed her a virgin. And so it's odd that it was that on the day of the eruption, I was not awakened by the explosion. I slept right through it, but I went up to university and I started writing a thing I call the new Voluspa, which John has made the video of that many of you have liked so much. I don't have the voice like I did then, do I? Well, I'd like to get that voice back. It means I need voice training. That's another thing. I need to pay for voice coach. I need to pay for what you call acting lessons. It's really just, getting healthy. I need to pay for getting healthy. I need income. I need a car. I need our taxi money. I need to be a healthy person. I can't be that on disability. Disability pays you less than it costs to live in Canada. Sinful. The social system in Canada. Sinful. Grotesque. Sure, well, at least you're lucky you get something. Yeah, well, let me tell you, being homeless or next to it ain't the best way to be. And now homeless, yeah, pretty much I am. I've been rent-evicted and booted out, and now I'm in a holding ward, basically. It's an old motel. But I've been twice rent-evicted in the course of the last 6 months and booted out of the lower mainland, which is Greater Vancouver, by people getting too rich and wanting nobody that's not rich like them, they want them out. They don't care what it does to your health, how it does to you, how it does to you socially, your lifestyle, your livelihood, your person. So if I sound a little rugged right now, yeah, it's been a rough year. So it's been a rough several years. But I'm an old warhorse. But what happened on that day? It began the new Voluspa. The clouds part like a dream of an imminent apocalypse, or whatever it begins as. And then that first page ends. the cloud heaves, and so an age, or whatever begins. And mountain, mountain, burning bright in the forest of the night, it begins the takeoff on blades that I use there to launch all that. And that raged for all that summer of 1980. Every day I was summoning the volcano and speaking with the voice of the volcano. And then things changed over the next few years through that. It went through a long mutation of that, through 80 over the winter of the New Year's of 81, 81, 82, no, 80, 81. I think I went through a really bad series of things with my wisdom teeth, and meeting somebody who was like a very dark force in terms of exposing me a lot of very intellectual stuff, including things on film and Morris Peckham and other writers like that. Eric Heller's The Disinherited Mind, which opened me up into Hölderlin and Goethe, and more about Rilke. I'm a big Rilke, Kafka guy, Kafka especially. Some of my stuff is inspired, I'd have to say, by Kafka. Inspired, is that the word? Emulating, I'm not sure. And I went through a very bad thing with my wisdom teeth. The Bellerophon song, there's a problem with the text that's in the MS, not the MSS, which I can't find. Somebody told me we should try tinkering with that. I tried tinkering by reversing a pair of the couplets, and it's not reading right. I have to figure out what that is. Bellerophon song. Note that, John. That one's not, as it's in the typeface is not correct. A couple of those couplets should be reversed. I have to think about it yet. But yeah, that came walking through Beacon Hill Park in Victoria after my wisdom teeth had been ripped out. I had a drain in my jaw that infected. I needed to go into surgery all day to remove the infection, which was all through my lower right mandible. I had to be flown back from Colorado to San Jose and bussed back to from California to Victoria. I almost died. But that was some of my best writing. And then much of the writing in the next period after that, there's something called Sansara, which is, I remember it was in the area of, Maine and Hastings, staying at a friend's place, Western Gym, when I wrote that. Wrote that? No, not exactly. Wrote when it came in my head. And some of the follow-ups for the Bards of Babylon came by sitting. Lines would come to me, and I'd squat down. Right there, I remember squatting down on the sidewalk on Davie Street between Homer and Richards in Vancouver, writing down those lines as they came to me. Lines came to me like thunder in my head. That's how they come. Vromio, Vromio. For those who know the line, that's addressing Dionysus. Thunder, thunder. Because that's who he is. Thunder. I heard the horns of Babylon. No, I didn't. That's bad. I screwed that one up. I heard the horns of Triton sounding across the Grey Grouse Water Sea. I heard those lines in my head, watching the Grey Gulf Water Sea, the Georgia Strait. Gulf of Georgia, I prefer to call it the Gulf. Coming back from Victoria during that episode to do with Bellerophon song. So a lot of that stuff, my poetry, most of it was written in that material from SFU through the Volcano, through the mid-80s with the teeth. I took a job, started playing electric guitar, 12-string guitar and keyboard a lot during the mid-80s, and covering music and covering songs, and writing one or two songs, maybe 5, through that period on guitar, and stopped writing poetry so much as the few things came out of me in those next so many years. And then a lot didn't happen until some other things came out in the early 90s. And the small Delphi poems came after my smuggling years were done, which would be, they ended in 2000 or 2001 or so, which has to do with the criminal fine I mentioned. The smuggling years, oh, believe me, there is a story and a half, but I don't have time to write the whole thing. And it's too complicated. Nobody would have, too dangerous to write too, but it's just, there's too many of my own failings in it to bother, and I wouldn't want to hurt certain people's feelings. Other people's feelings I could care less. You'd be surprised who I wouldn't want to hurt the feelings of, including one of the guys who ripped me off. I wouldn't want to hurt his feelings, but no, it's pain. Pain makes your voice go like this. I'd like it to leave me, the pain. If it's pain making my voice sound like this, well, John, that's because I'm sitting here. I'm not sobbing every night. I know that. Am I eating right? No. Am I getting my wind? No. Am I been smoking too much? I know that. I've been smoking a lot this year. Why? Well, because when you're in the psych ward, that's all they let you have. Psych ward. Psych ward. Yeah, well, they finally got me on something. Finally got me on something. You know what happening is somebody who doesn't have a lot of education but has some, but they have a certificate on it that has MD and PDH Psych or whatever on the end of it. They can commit you. They call it certify here in Canada, and I got slammed in a prison. They call it the psych ward. So I don't know. I wonder if with my voice will improve after I'm off the Divalproax and the olanzapine, because I'm not on them willingly. I'm not on them willingly. But if I don't do what they say, they can throw me back inside. If I get too uppity about anything I'm saying, they can do bad things to me. So if you don't want to see me I don't know. They're not going to electroshock me. But that's where it's coming from right now. I'm not feeling myself, and I'm strained from thinking about all this stuff so much. And they'll let you smoke cigarettes, but I can't smoke marijuana. Oh no, But folks, okay. So John, there is your memoir, John. So I think that kind of sums it up, folks. Except for this whole question of tell me what you'd like if you can just help me out by. Mike, let me pay your way to Greece. Mike, let me pay your way to Iceland. Mike, let me help you pay off that fine. If we can just do things directly instead of having to put them through the filtering systems of the GoFundMe and the Patreon system, the other systems, we can come around with other ways of doing things. If you think that you can help me spread a GoFundMe for $2 each, $4 each, fine. If you Patreon, John is trying to work on getting some books of mine, a book with me published. I'll promise you a copy of it, and I'll sign it for you, whatever you want. But yeah, if you can find out some kind of way to help me out or contribute to this cause, send me some moral support anyway. John says I have a. What word did you use, John? I can't remember. A following. That wasn't it. I know people like what I do. I'm always encouraged when I hear it, but how do you ask for music to be a poet? I can't guarantee what I'm going to write. I know I've got stories to write inside of me. I know I've got to tell the story of my grandfather, a fascinating character I'd like to research more. I know that my Norwegian side, Icelandic side, fascinating history I need to look into further. My mom's story includes hints that were connected to the story of the Volsunga saga. My own family turns out to have those connections. Shocks me. But I want to go to India. I want to go to Bodh Gati. I want to go to the great Buddhist shrines. And, I'd like to go back to Thailand. But Iceland, I want to go play whistles. In Donegal, I want to go play whistles at the Dow, at the for the Dagda. I want to go play whistles at Care Angus and go find the family farm in Iceland. And the Orkneys. My dad told me that our family were the Earls of Orkney. These would be the medieval Earls of Orkney, the Scandinavian ones. How can you not want to go and find out more? But I'm a skald. I'm a bard. I'm a singer. I'm a teller of tales. Really, I want to also pick up my electric guitar again and start singing. That'll probably help clear my voice out quite a bit too, by the way. And play my whistles. I have one now. I lost my one whistle, and a very precious wooden one, in a town called Hope on a certain trip. My last location, long story. But I have a fresh penny whistle. I have nowhere to play it. No room to play it. Mental room. Like I'm living in a sort of motel kind of complex. And I can't play music whenever I want. And I'm not able to walk around and enjoy things. I used to walk around with my guitar. That's part of the memoirs that were not done yet. Not done, John. We haven't got that far yet. After I smuggling years, I sold the electric keyboard I bought off that, and got in a guitar, and I set it on the road as a wandering electric bard. And John has all that electric music. A lot of it was a lot I could talk about. I'll do a second memoir about that. That's enough for tonight, John. So that one will pick up the bard story at the point where I sell off the electronic keyboard and start wandering out with my J Tercer Strat and my Honeytone Dan Electro all across Canada and back, playing at the border. Playing because across the long, thin, cold white line of the Trans-Canada Highway, because I can't cross the American border because of what I did, and I set my fine too high. Help me pay off that fine, America. Help me pay off that fine. It only doesn't come out too much in American dollars. You know, I have to pay the fine, a pardon, and get a waiver, and then I can come to New York and Boston and Nashville and New Orleans. You know, I want to play Bourbon Street before I die, and not just once. You know, I got a song about California. I want to play the whiskey. You know, I've got a friend who's a surf stager in New York. You know, Unsteady Freddy. He wants you can sell me out if I get there. And nobody in Canada likes the electric stuff. Nope, nope. I play Americana. I don't play Canadiana. But I don't know. We'll get back on that another time. This is enough swallowing memoir for now. This is enough for John to get you going, huh? John says it's more authentic like this. I guess it is. I'm about as authentic as you can get. So I'm the Canadian who doesn't believe in this country anymore. I think it's time for us to become republics. I got a little bit too loud about that, and I got beaten up by the authorities for it. Does that sound like the country you want to be part of? Doesn't sound like it for me, and I don't want to be part of a country that has institutionalized apartheid either. So, what do we got here? 36. John, you take what you want from that. Take care, pal.